Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Alright, I'm Cozy. Let's do a video. This channel's so good. Rick Steves Europe. Preemptive like, I did the Cotswolds, I believe, which was the first video I watched of his. And we're doing Netherlands beyond Amsterdam. I said everything, right? Original link to the video, top of the description below that, link to the Discord. My name's Connor. If you're new, I like to watch things and learn stuff. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. The people here claim if you stand on a chair, you can see all across their country. This is the best of the Netherlands. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, he's got a great intro, too. Are there any deserts in Europe?
Traveling here, it's easy to see how the Netherlands is a lot like its people. Efficient, a good balance of old and new, hard work and fun, innovation and tradition. Even with a dense population and an ongoing battle with the sea, the Dutch are warm and even-keeled.
We'll cruise through a mighty port, go for an old-fashioned sail, and visit the ultimate flower market. We'll marvel at Dutch masters, smoke some eels, pull out all the stops on an unforgettable organ, and start up a classic windmill. In the west of Europe is the Netherlands, with 12 provinces, including North and South Holland. Everything we'll see is within an hour of Amsterdam. We'll sail what was the Zuider Sea, blocked off by long dams. Explore characteristic towns from Delft to Rotterdam and Haarlem to Marken, with lots in between.
I think Rotterdam is what we drove through. We were going up here through Rotterdam to Amsterdam and then down to Germany. Okay.
Most Dutch travel dreams are set in the area called Holland, and that's where we'll be spending most of our time.
Like many fortified old cities, Delft welcomes you with the twin towers of its city gate, graced by an old drawbridge and a canal moat. Its delightful architecture recalls the Golden Age, the 17th century pinnacle of Dutch trade and sea power. Quaint scenes line intimate canals. It's Thursday, and that means market day in Delft. In towns all over the Netherlands, main squares become thriving markets one day a week. It's late June, and the herring are in season. And every market comes with a cheesemonger, almost evangelical about the tastiness of Dutch cheese. Ask a question, and you're in for an education, complete with samples.
This is young. How young is this?
About 4 or 6 weeks.
So tell me about this one.
4.5 years old, handmade and quite strong.
Ooh.
We have sometimes we have them even older.
I like that. Give me a glass of port, and this is my dessert.
Yeah.
Towering over the square is the church with its brick steeple rocketing skyward. And facing that, overseeing the town's commerce as it has for nearly 1,000 years, is the City Hall. Much of the Netherlands is built on soggy land. The City Hall, with its heavy stone jail, was built on the most solid land in town. The leaning church, just down the canal, not so much.
Whoa, is it really
the town's
leaning?
historic canals both drained the land and provided a transportation.
Is that... Okay.
The town's historic canals both drained the land and provided a transportation network for barges. Today, the old barges are retired. Many are permanently moored in front of cafes and restaurants for outdoor dining. Over the centuries, these little canals shipped out countless barge loads of the town's famed earthenware.
Delftware is famous all around the world. Royal Delft, the oldest surviving workshop, established back in the 1600s, welcomes visitors to drop in and see how it's made.
Visitors to the factory follow the process. First, the liquid clay is poured into plaster molds. When dry, it's removed, and the seams are smoothed off. Then Then it's baked. And then lovingly painted by hand. A mesmerizing scene, unchanged for centuries.
God, I'd be terrible at that.
After being glazed to fix the paint, it's baked a second time, during which the paint turns blue. That's the secret of Royal Delft Blue since 1653. The finished product? This highly valued earthenware. Rooms of historic Delftware show off this art. This table setting is laid out as if it was the home of a wealthy person here in Delft. The Netherlands is small, smaller than West Virginia, and the most densely populated country in Europe. Most of the country.
Really? Even more than like the micronations like Monaco or something?
Is below sea level, reclaimed with great effort over many generations from the sea. That's why they like to say, God made the world, but the Dutch, we made Holland. This is Polderland. Much of it once covered by the sea, it was encircled by dikes and dams and then drained. To pump out all that water, the Dutch used one of their leading natural resources, the wind.
I was about to say, how did they pump it out?
For centuries, the Dutch built windmills. Over 1,000 survive, and many still work. Some welcome visitors interested in a peek at the clever engine that powered the creation of this land.
We were going pretty quickly through, just driving through, staying a night in Amsterdam, and then going to Germany. But I definitely, not just in Netherlands, but in Belgium and France and Germany, so many windmills. But they were mostly the more modern, like white, tall, thin windmills, right? And I don't really recall ever seeing any of the wooden ones.
I'm standing on reclaimed land, 12 feet below sea level. The challenge for the Dutch, to keep this land dry by pumping water uphill. Many windmills used their wind power to turn an Archimedes screw like this, which by rotating in a tube, lifted water up and over the dike.
To catch the desired amount of wind, millers, like expert sailors, know just how much to unfurl the sails or furl them back as necessary. Mills are built with sturdy oak timber frames to withstand the constant tension. These timbers have stood strong since the 1600s. When the direction of the wind shifts, the miller turns the cap of the building, which weighs many tons, to face the breeze.
Really?
As he spins the winch, it all slides on these wooden roller bearings.
I had no idea
And
they...
with a hefty chain, he anchors it in the correct spot.
I had no idea the whole thing turned.
As the wooden cogs connect, wind becomes clean power. Archimedes' screw rotates, and the water spirals up.
How does Archimedes
screw rotates.
I'm always thinking, like, how does it work? Because wouldn't the water just slide down the screw? But clearly it... So you can carry as much water before it starts to overflow the middle of the screw. Okay.
And the water...
And wouldn't you have to make the seal between the screw and the wall super tight? And how do you do that on a rotating piece of metal?
Spirals up. The Dutch had long eyed what was the vast inland Zuider Sea as a source of new land. This 18-mile-long dam was built as one of many steps in turning that sea into farmland.
I know I look tired. I didn't get that much sleep last night, but just because I look tired doesn't mean I necessarily am. I kind of am, but it's not a very intensive video, so.
The master plan, cordon off sections of the shallow sea with hundreds of miles of dams and dikes like this. Then, by draining each section dry, piece by piece, build a bigger country.
These fields were once the bottom of that wide open sea. Gradually, land was reclaimed, and today the Netherlands is twice the size it was 400 years ago. Because of this reclamation, what had been fishing villages on little islands, like Schokland, are now high and dry mounds rising above fertile farmland. Behind this sturdy stone and wood seawall, this tiny community once harvested the sea. In its day, this cannon...
Wait, so does that mean if you dig down far enough in these fields, you're gonna reach, like, sand that you would find at the bottom of a bay or ocean? So it must have all just been sand. And then they've filled it in with dirt?
This tiny community once harvested the sea. In its day, this cannon warned visitors of a high tide.
I'm standing below sea level. I know that because I picked up a handful of dirt and it came with some shells.
There you go.
This marks sea level, according to the official Amsterdam measure, 0.
Imagine, a couple generations ago, this buoy bobbed in the harbor. What was the bottom of the sea is now productive farmland. The salty seabed soil, with a mix of rain, sunshine, and clever crop rotation, eventually becomes extremely fertile. One thing the polder soil grows particularly well is flowers. And here at the Alsmeer Flower Auction, it's clear. Flowers are big business in Holland.
I heard a fact, like, in a different video, 80% of flower exports came from the Netherlands, but there's no way. They must have meant tulip exports. Sorry if you answer that in another video, I pointed that out.
Visitors are welcome in this, one of the world's largest commercial buildings. They witness millions of dollars in the trafficking of flowers. In its auction halls, hundreds of wholesalers bid on trainloads of flowers as they roll by. To get the flowers out as fresh as possible, everything happens fast, including the bidding. A Dutch auction is speedy because the prices go from high to low. Batches of flowers are sold to the first buyer to press the button. Buyers must be lightning quick. It's the only way to sell so many flowers in one morning. Strolling the fragrant catwalk, it's fun to peer down on the action. They boast that fresh flowers go from cutting in the fields to flower shops anywhere in Europe within 24 hours. Workers scramble to get each buyer's purchase assembled on a train and shipped out. The Dutch are the world's leading flower exporters. 80% of these flowers are going abroad.
Oh, okay.
Every day from this building, 20 million flowers are shipped, destined to make someone's day.
We didn't say 80% of world export. 80% is just such a giant number. I know you're known for flowers,
The industrious heritage of the Dutch people is evident in its many historic cities. Haarlem is a Dutch master's kind of town, with plenty of 17th century architecture. The town gate, no longer needed as part of its fortification, welcomes all into a delightful old town. Haarlem's Market Square, traffic-free since the 1960s, has been the town's focal point for centuries. The herring stand is a standard feature of small town squares throughout Holland.
Hello.
Hi.
Is it herring time now? Are these fresh?
It's fresh. It's new herring season, so it's
In the summertime, it's
great.
good.
Yes.
there is no Dutch, I say this confidently, Dutch people easily have, and it's fascinating because it must tell you something about Dutch and English being pretty close in terms of like being kind of relatives, in that it's the Dutch accent is so faint compared to other ones. Like they almost sound like native speakers of English. The accent is so not insignificant.
So what are my options?
The options outside of Amsterdam, they grab it from the tail,
And
so
just send
they
it
slide
right
it inside and they bite it.
Yeah. And in Amsterdam?
In Amsterdam, you cut it in pieces.
Let's have it Amsterdam style.
Yeah.
Please.
Do you want onions and pickles with it?
What is the normal way?
With everything.
I'll have everything. That's
The
great.
whole package.
The whole package. Beautiful. And this is actually raw?
This is raw. It's marinated with salty, and then we eat it with the Dutch flag.
So this is a patriotic duty in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
Is this, people say this is a healthy thing to eat.
it is.
So how do you say delicious and healthy?
Lekker en gezond.
Lekker en gezond.
Yeah,
Lekker en gezond.
Raw fish.
raw fish.
Why not? This will make me a good man.
You already are, but now you're better.
Lekker en gezond.
Eat some pickles.
To uncover some of Haarlem's sights, dodge bikes down narrow, characteristic lanes. Just down the street,
I'm not gonna bring
Haarlem's
up my
top
bike
museum
story in
features
Netherlands.
the work of its most famous son,
Van
the
Gogh?
great portrait artist Frans Hals. Here, in a room full of his masterpieces, we get a good taste of Protestant Dutch art.
When the Dutch broke away from Spain and the Catholic Church in the 1600s, they established an independent Protestant republic. While this was great for freedom, it was a crisis for painters. No more wealthy bishops and art-loving kings to commission grand works of art. Dutch society was a merchant society, and now artists worked for a new kind of customer.
Merchants. These are the ego-boosting portraits of city bigshots. They epitomize the independent and upwardly mobile Dutch of the 17th century, the men who made the Golden Age golden. These Dutchmen worked hard and were proud of it. Here, some business leaders close a deal.
That is so incredibly realistic. That looks like a photograph. It's all great, but this guy's face looks like a photograph. That is so cool.
Here, some business leaders close a deal. They enjoy
Pilgrims.
displaying the fruits
No.
of their labor, like this, an exquisitely detailed still life of good food. No preachy Madonnas or saints, but a canvas reminder that this household ate very well. And this family had some fine pewterware. In this woman's portrait, her elegant dress and jewelry are painted with as much care as her face.
I love how it focuses on accuracy rather than like an idealistic photo of like perfectly set stuff. It's like this thing's tipped over. There's a big chunk taken out. It's not that neat of a chunk. It's right there. The peel of this orange or whatever citrusy fruit that is kind of hanging off.
Some fine
The pictures of the people, they look real rather than kind of embellished.
pewterware. In this woman's portrait, her elegant dress and jewelry are painted with as much care as her face. Painters showed city pride as well. The centerpiece of most Dutch cities is the church. You see it in 300-year-old paintings, and you see it today as you explore.
Oh, that's so cool.
Paintings, and you see it is the church. You see it in 300-year-old paintings, and you see it today as you explore.
Wow, so this building was there before. These ones are not. Oh, the statue isn't there yet. Sorry, if this is like getting you dizzy or something, you can fast forward. I just want to keep comparing. Wow, this building is still there. Cool, cool.
Haarlem's Groot Kerk, or Great Church, towers over the market square as if to bless all the business that takes place below. Inside, you find a towering Gothic nave, which was whitewashed and purged of its Catholic ornamentation when the Reformation arrived in 1566. Small frescoed sections revealed when the whitewash was cleaned off show how the entire church was originally decorated.
I was gonna say, what exactly, if you were trying to whitewash a Catholic church into a Protestant church, like what do you need to get rid of? I'm sure anything that has to do with the Pope or anything. Ooh, is that? And they took off the white part to reveal that? How is it so well preserved? Did they color it back in, I'm assuming? But yeah, I wonder when they went in, like, all right, we got to whitewash this of Catholic imagery. What exactly imagery did they get out?
As was the case in many Protestant countries, rather than huge, preachy works of visual art like frescoes and statues promoting the message of the church, the artistic emphasis was put on music.
Protestant churches invested in mighty pipe organs.
Look at that thing.
Haarlem's towering organ has been giving worship here an inspirational soundtrack since 1738. And visitors enjoy free concerts weekly. Europe's densest population, the Netherlands has invested in an impressive public transportation infrastructure. Buses and trains seem to go everywhere all the time. After leaving Haarlem, in a few minutes we're in Rotterdam with its striking new train station. Rotterdam has a gleaming skyline and Europe's largest port. It's a reminder of the Dutch knack for international trade.
Okay.
Locals say that while
we definitely drove through this area because I'm like, I don't remember that much. The only part of Rotterdam I remember driving through is
the money
seeing a lot of industrial parts of it, like a ton of metal containers and pipe. I'm not saying it was an ugly sight. It was just a very industrial business side of Rotterdam's site. Very interesting.
Money is spent in Amsterdam, it's made here in Rotterdam. They boast that shirts in Rotterdam are sold with the sleeves already rolled up. A walk through this thriving pedestrian zone complements our quaint old world sightseeing with a dose of today's reality. Rotterdam's port is the third largest in the world. With a harbor tour, you can appreciate its immensity.
What are number 1 and 2? One of them has got to be in maybe like Shanghai and Singapore or something.
The port handles 35,000 ocean-going vessels each year. That's almost 100 ships a day. While most of these ships sail the open seas, this is where the Rhine River meets the ocean. And from here, riverboats filled with either tourists or cargo.
Whoa, cool building.
And from here, riverboats filled with either tourists or cargo can go all the way through Europe to the Black Sea.
Really? Holy real, that's so cool.
Europe, riverboats filled with either tourists or cargo can go all the way through Europe to the Black Sea.
That's insane. So you can do a circle, because obviously you can go from the Black Sea to the Aegean Sea, or into the Mediterranean, and then you can go through Gibraltar and into the Atlantic, and then go back through the English Channel, North Sea, into Rotterdam, and then you can go all the way through Europe on a boat into the Black Sea and complete the circuit. That's so awesome. Sort of like you can do with like you can go through the Gulf, like St. Lawrence. Is it the Gulf of St. Lawrence or you can get all the way to Minnesota from the Atlantic by going through St. Lawrence River, through Montreal, and then into some rivers to the Great Lakes and all the way to Minnesota. But you can make it all the way to the Black Sea on boat that's so awesome.
Back in the 17th century, the Dutch East India Company, which did business in ports all around the world, was, in a way, the first great multinational corporation. Today, the Dutch, with little in the way of natural resources, still make their serious money in trade. They remain among the world's great shippers.
After mighty Rotterdam, the tiny but historic port of Hoorn, a couple hours to the north, seems quaint. But in its day, it was one of 6 trading cities that joined forces to create the Dutch East India Company. It evokes a rich history from its once formidable harbor to its main square. Overlooking the square is the West Fries Museum, which takes you
that Dispertant Nick or something? Can't really read that.
main square. Overlooking the square is the West Fries Museum, which takes you vividly back to Holland's golden age. Stepping into the venerable building, which dates from the 1600s, the floor creaks. Its planks were salvaged from centuries-old trading ships, which likely sailed all the way to the Spice Islands on the far side of the world. Here you feel the pride and the power of the Dutch when they dominated world trade and brutally capitalized on their far-flung colonial empire. Pondering group portraits above the mantel, you can imagine the influence and the wealth of these tycoons. Here they're portrayed as if they control the globe. In a way, they did. And much of that was because of the value of the spices they imported. With the bland cuisine of Europe back then, you can imagine the demand for these new exotic spices. You could spice up both your food and your life with peppercorns, cloves, and cinnamon.
I learned from the History Matters video and a few other videos about how the Japanese, during their big kind of isolation before the Meiji Restoration, I don't know enough about the time period to make these, but how they were less kind of pushy of religion than the other colonial powers.
And nutmeg was so valuable, it was said a bag of these could buy a house in 17th century Holland. Exploring Holland, we're struck by the big skies, fertile fields, and flat land. The country is bounded by the North Sea. Where there are no natural dunes to keep the sea out, the Dutch have had to build mighty walls or dikes to protect their farms and communities.
Roughly half the people and half the land here in the Netherlands are below sea level. And for 700 years, the Dutch have developed their expertise at keeping this country dry.
Yeah, it's so crazy how, you know, if you erase this mound here that they made, with the, I think the biggest, I think the biggest tide difference is somewhere in Maine or New Brunswick. But you can see how if there was some big storm and a storm surge, there's not much uphillness to keep water from going in as far as it wants to.
It's a constant battle, and now with climate change and rising sea levels a reality, the work is that much harder and more expensive.
Even with impressive dikes already in place, the Dutch are moving mountains of sand and mud to fortify their dikes and protect their next generation. Famous for both their frugality and their foresight, the Dutch are investing billions of euros as climate change makes its costly impact felt on sea level communities here and around the globe. And flood protection requires more than massive dikes. Built where the
Why don't when like 99.999999999% of talk about climate change is talk about reducing certain types of fuel extraction to reduce our effect on climate change that way. But why is the act of creating things to prevent that storm surge, like the Dutch are doing, not given more attention? Like, why can't we do both at the same time? Why can't we do massive projects to protect from floods and also work on ways of reducing certain harmful things that contribute to global warming? I just feel like whenever it's global warming, it's always reduce emissions and never build stuff to prevent it, you know?
The big river meets the sea, the Maasland storm surge barrier is an amazing engineering project. When necessary, its two arms, each as long as the Eiffel Tower is high, are swung together to create a barrier. This stops a storm surge from flooding the Rotterdam Delta, where 1 million people live. Low-lying American cities are importing Dutch expertise as they too face the reality of the future.
Okay.
Along with their role as protectors of the Netherlands,
I don't really get, though, how does that
massive dikes. Built where the big river meets the sea, the Maasland storm surge barrier is an amazing engineering project.
I don't get it. If these two things swing open, they're above the water, and I don't get it. How do these two white metal things block a storm surge? Are they just the top part of a larger thing that swings closed?
When necessary, its two arms, each as long as the Eiffel Tower is high, are swung together to create a barrier.
I don't get it. How does that create a barrier? It's just... Clearly it does. I'm not questioning that it does. I just don't see how.
This stops a storm surge from flooding the Rotterdam Delta, where 1 million people live. Low-lying American cities are importing Dutch expertise as they too face the reality of the future. Along with their role as protectors of the Netherlands, some of the dikes and sand dunes that make the North Sea coast are playgrounds as well.
The great little statue.
And ever since the industrial age kicked into gear, local workers have come here for their R&R. At the seaside resort of Scheveningen, that Dutch love of life is cranked way up. Rather than fight the sea, here people play in it. And for over a century, Dutch holiday-goers have enjoyed this promenade. With the comfort of knowing Dutch engineers are keeping the sea at bay, my favorite days in Holland are spent below sea level, in its quaint and picturesque corners. Here you can experience the landscape of Holland as it was back in the 17th century. Exploring villages that seem to be built on both land and water, you get a sense for what life must have been like for the Dutch centuries ago. In the town of Enkhuizen is the Zuiderzee Museum. While the modern world threatens traditional ways of Dutch life, this creative museum strives to keep them alive for future generations to appreciate. Its sprawling layout allows visitors to travel through both
I can play that game. Let me play.
In one corner, people are living as if still in a remote fishing village back in 1905. Exploring the park, you enjoy intimate slices of life from Old Holland. The coopers artfully make their barrels watertight. The coal furnace is stoked to run the belt-driven laundromat. Sudsing, agitating, and ringing. The sailmaker stitches a sail. The blacksmith pounds his iron in his wooden clogs. Fishermen are smoking their...
Guys, just how are those comfortable? I gotta read more comments of the other one, of the other video I asked this, but I'd love to try those on, but do I really have to try them on to imagine what wooden shoes would feel like? I'm open-minded. I would try them on. I wish I did when I was there.
And visitors devour the entire experience. And here in the Netherlands, if you know where to look, you can also enjoy traditional experiences outside the museums. We're sailing to the fishing village of Marken.
Oh, screw you!
We're sailing to the fishing village of Marken in a traditional fishing boat. A few of these venerable boats survive. This one earns its keep by hiring out to visitors, and in the case of this motley crew, putting them to work.
How are we doing, Captain? Almost. One more boat.
How old is this boat?
It's from 1904. Yeah, it's 110 years old, this boat.
What was the purpose? What was the work it did?
The purpose is a fishing boat. It's a working boat. They just did fishing with it, nothing else.
Now, back then, this was saltwater, right?
It was salt water because there was no dike in the north, so it was salt water, so they fished on herring.
You're telling me that's all fresh water?
anchovies.
How many people would work on the boat when it went out?
Well, they were with one skipper and one mate, so they actually did it with two people.
Just two? Only two?
They sailed and worked this ship, they even did fishing with it with two people.
So they would go fishing for how many days?
On Sunday they went to church, of course, and they started on Monday morning.
Question, guys.
And they came back Friday evening.
5 days out, 2 men in this ship.
Yeah, they were, that was the time of wooden ships and iron men.
Wooden ships and iron men.
See, this is what happens when I don't ask the questions when they come to my mind. I miss a cool part. How long do you think if you stopped what's it called? Pumping out the water. What's it called? Whatever it is, pumping out the water out of the land that is now farmland. How long would it take for that area to become a freshwater lake from rainfall? You know, because it's below sea level. It's not that important of a question. It's just, I was curious.
To church, of course, and they started on Monday morning. And
Hold on. I know we just watched it, but I missed it because I was trying to think.
Sailed and worked this ship, they even did fishing with it with two people.
So they would go fishing for how many days?
On Sunday they went to church, of course, and they started on Monday morning, and they came back Friday evening.
5 days out, 2 men in this ship.
Yeah, they were, that was the time of wooden ships and iron men.
Wooden ships and iron men. Those were the days.
Yeah.
Marken welcomes visitors with its charming harbor. It's a favorite with vacationing yachters who enjoy late sunsets with convivial happy hours. The oldest homes in the village were built on the highest ground. They huddle together as if finding strength in numbers in the face of the next flood.
In the 19th century, this harbor was the thriving home to over 100 fishing boats. But along with fishing, devastating floods were a way of life here in Marken. When they walled off the sea with a massive dike 50 miles north of here, the salt water turned to fresh water and the sea was controlled. It was tough on the fishing industry, but overall, good for the people. No more floods.
While Marken remains both traditional and idyllic to this day, like so much of the Netherlands, it's a place where the past and the present mingle comfortably.
The Netherlands offers travelers a rich variety of sights and experiences. And traveling here, sooner or later, you find yourself exclaiming, everything's just so Dutch. I'm Rick Steves. Until next time, keep on traveling. Tot ziens.
Zine? Such a good guy, such a good channel. Oh my god, what was I gonna say? I had something cool to say before I sent you guys off. Now I forget, and it's gonna bug me. Awesome video, loved it. I will keep watching this channel. This guy's channel is just so good. I haven't been so excited about finding a channel since I found Ryan Shirley's channel, which I think is also another great travel YouTube channel. So good. I'm going to continue watching these videos. Anyone from the Netherlands, if you can answer some of the questions or things I wasn't certain about, love to have your answers down in the comments. And I hope you guys are all doing well. If not, emotions are fickle. You'll be good soon. Don't worry. Bye, guys. See you next time. Bye.